Let's talk about the one trick that rich people are using right now to get ahead and stay ahead of you. Well, in fact, it's not a trick at all. It's literally using a system that was designed to do one thing. We're going to explain what the one thing that this system is designed to do, and by understanding it, you can not only understand where we are in the history of the economy, but understand very clearly where we are going. In fact, understanding this one trick is possibly the only thing you ever need to do to build wealth in the world. And this one trick is simply understanding money itself. Let's talk about a very simple way that you can understand how money works so you can understand how to build wealth. It's actually one of the easiest things, but you need to understand a few fundamentals. Understanding this is how rich people become extremely rich, and quite literally anyone can do this. In fact, studies show that people without money tend to idealize money. They see money as good or evil instead of understanding just simply how it works and understanding that having more of it can help protect them, their families, ensure that they get access to medical treatments, or simply have free time to focus on the things that are truly important in their lives. Understanding money is the absolute key to breaking free from the shackles of society. But for some reason, so many people fail to just understand this one little piece of information. First of all, when I say money, I'm talking about the US dollar, though most economies work this way. To understand how the US economy works, we need to understand what happened in 1971. Now, this extremely simple website, WTF happened in 1971, is one that you should absolutely visit. And let's explain what it shows. What this website shows is what happened to the world after President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard. This means that US dollars could no longer be converted into gold. And this was the beginning of the US dollar as a fiat currency, a currency by decree versus a currency backed by anything. Now, observe these pieces of information. First is that since exactly this date, the value of people's actual work, their compensation based on their labor, has gone completely sideways, where the productivity of the entire economy has increased dramatically. It's important to realize that after World War II, the gains in the US economy were shared well throughout the economy from low, middle, and upper class members of society. However, this all changed when we went off the gold standard and started printing money. Chart after chart shows you that the growth in the American economy was not shared by the average worker since 1971. I'm going to make this brutally clear. The time you spend working is worth less and less over time. The value of your labor has been going down ever since the dollars you're getting paid with aren't tied to gold. The most simple way you can understand this is that your money is no longer the goal. It used to be the goal, where you could get paid in dollars that had this gold behind it. And therefore, in a way, you were collecting gold every time you went to work. That is no longer the case. Understanding this one thing is how you can get ahead in life. Pure and simple. It's very simple. Money is actually not super complex, but to understand how it works and where it ends up takes a little bit of explanation. But once you get this, you can be ahead of literally everyone else, which is like most people who don't understand this. In 1971, when the US dollar left the gold standard, meaning you can't get gold with it anymore, you are now just trading it based on confidence. Well, we also introduced something called the PetroDollar. The PetroDollar was created at the exact same time as the US left the gold standard. And this was effectively to make it so that nations all around the world had to trade oil with the dollar. The idea was that the dollar would be backed by how much it's used as opposed to the stuff you can convert it into, like gold. And that has allowed America to explode with growth because we can effectively keep printing dollars and dollars and dollars and knowing that they have to be used for the most important resource in the world, energy. Don't fool yourself, kids. Energy is still the most important resource that we trade. But this deal of converting the dollar from effectively a piece of gold into a fiat currency or a petrodollar comes with a very nasty little clause in the fine print. And once I explain it to you, you'll understand very clearly how the game works. The requirement of leaving the gold standard means that wealth inequality in the United States is bound to get horrible, worse and worse each and every year. And the reason is simple. And that's because the wealthiest Americans own all of the scarce assets. They own all of the stocks, which is the thing that is designed to benefit from this, not you, the laborer, not you, the average person. And I know you might be thinking, well, America's the strongest economy. We keep growing. We have the biggest companies, the strongest capital markets, and all of these pieces of data that you hear on the TV and in politicians say them to justify America doing well. But what they don't tell you is that actually all of that is only going to a small group of people, the people who own these scarce assets. Understanding that the way money is now designed and the promise that we make by issuing US dollars and forcing them to be used in things like oil trade and really be the medium of exchange for the world is in many ways a deal with the devil. Because by issuing dollars like we do, what we're effectively doing is flooding other economies with those dollars. China, India, Europe, all around the world, businesses and countries collect US dollars expecting that they can reinvest them. Because if they can't reinvest them and make returns, then why would they want to take them at all? But those returns come at a cost, and the cost is wealth inequality. The cost is the average American worker. Take a peek at this. This outcome of wealth inequality in the United States is guaranteed to continue and likely worsen so long as America continues to covet its role as the issuer of the global reserve currency. In order to maintain its seat on the current throne, America must always treat capital better than labor. I'm going to read this again. In order to maintain its seat on the currency throne, America must always treat capital better than labor. It must allow Asia to invest dollars into financial assets. Capital invested in the stock market demands a return, and capital will demand that those executives continue to raise profit margins by reducing costs. Reducing costs necessitates replacing expensive domestic labor with cheap foreign labor. If America does not treat capital this way, then there is no incentive for Asia to sell goods in dollars, since it won't be able to buy or invest in anything with those dollars. Let's break this down. 1971, we left the gold standard. Since then, the US dollar is backed by how much it's used. The value comes from its utility, its confidence. And the subtext of that is that the people who take these dollars need to put them somewhere. All these countries, specifically countries like India and China, which are major trade partners, need to put those dollars somewhere. And those dollars can't just do the exact same as the labor, or else why collect all these dollars? They would just sell stuff in their native currencies if those US dollars weren't giving a better return. But those US dollars do give a better return. And the one who pays the price is the American worker. So what does this actually mean? What is this one trick? What is this one thing that you need to understand in order to actually build wealth? Well, the one thing you need to understand is that the economy is literally designed to steal money from laborers and reward instead the people that invest US dollars into specific asset classes. Those asset classes are not complex. They're not hidden from you. There is not a mystery here as to what they are. Those asset classes historically have been real estate, stocks, commodities, and now things like cryptocurrencies. And of course, there's also collectibles, art, things generally grouped into a class called alternative investments. What these fundamentally share, these new asset classes, is one characteristic. They are fundamentally scarce, while money is fundamentally limitless in value. Ever since 1971, the one rule was that the US dollar must go down and the capital assets you can buy with those US dollars must go up. And the person who loses is the American worker, but only if you fail to accumulate those assets. You see, the fun part about this game is that anyone can play it. Everyone has access to buy these assets, but psychology of markets tricks you into not doing them. So let's talk a little bit about where we are and what the opportunities to buy these assets might look like. Here's Ray Dalio telling you what he thinks about the current economic setup.
And so it's going to, either that debt will be paid off with hard money, in which case there's not much printing and so on, or it'll be paid off with printing a lot of money to make it easier to pay off. I think in the end, it's always the case that they print a lot of money and make it easier to pay off, but you have the reduced value of money.
This interview was very recent, where Dalio's explaining what the US government and the economy is going to do with all this debt, all the issues with the banks having too much debt and commercial real estate having debt and debt. There's a debt issue. Well, guess what? He says they're going to print money to solve it. And if you understand what that means, if you understand that that is required each and every time there is a financial crisis like we're looking at, you also need to ask yourself a question. Where is that money going to go? And how can you benefit from the flow of that money. This is not a one-off scenario. This is not a freak occurrence or a random opportunity that you're being presented with. When you understand that literally this is how the machine has been designed, and that you don't need to guess, but you know 100% where money is going to go over the course of not just the next few years, but decades into the future, it becomes extremely easy to build wealth. We're gonna bring this all together here at the end, but let's go ahead and drive this point home a little bit further. Stanley Druckenmiller also believes we're looking at a massive inflated asset bubble and that things may crash horrifically in the next few months, but also affirms that you're going to have unbelievable opportunities in the next couple of years. There's a lot of dispersion within industries, and just make sure to preserve your capital until they present themselves. So this gets more to the question of how do we prepare for this? Because we're hearing that there's this horrific recession coming, everyone's freaked out, and it's causing people to panic instead of plan and effectively do this one thing, which is you want to accumulate the scarce assets with all of the resources you have in order to get ahead of the next expansion in money supply. As the money supply grows, those assets grow in value. Your labor continues to drop in value. So the last thing you should be doing is clutching your pearls and keeping all of your money out of those assets. In fact, money can be broken down into a very simple game of collecting assets that are literally designed by the money machine since 1971 to grow, while your labor is designed since 1971 to shrink in value. Now, to drive this point home, what should you be doing right now? And here's a clip from the NVIDIA founder. NVIDIA has had this absolutely explosive rise since people realized that AI will be exclusively run on their NVIDIA chips. Listen to what the founder has recently said at a graduation ceremony that he was the keynote speaker of.
Just as every generation before you embraced technologies to succeed, every company and you must learn to take advantage of AI and do amazing things with an AI co-pilot by your side. While some worry that AI may take their jobs, someone who expert with AI will.
As much as the economy has screwed over workers since 1971, the rise of AI is going to absolutely crush demand for unskilled labor. And let me rephrase that. Labor that's not leveraging AI. Many people fear that AI is going to wipe out a ton of jobs. I think it's inevitable. But in the short term, AI will only wipe out jobs of people who are not using it. So if you're in a position where you now understand the one thing, literally the only thing that you need to understand to build wealth, which is that since 1971, the promise of the US dollar is that assets like stocks, real estate, commodities, alternative investments, and the like naturally must grow in value in exchange for dollars that are invested. You now understand that collecting dollars isn't the point. You want to collect buckets of those assets. It's not a question. This is just how the game is built. You understand that, then you can stop focusing on money and start collecting those buckets of assets. It's really, really simple. I believe Bitcoin and crypto will be the highest performing asset class that responds to this phenomenon. Again, feel free to disagree with me in the comments. But if you're sitting there looking to collect your first bucket of assets, I would be wasting absolutely zero time in grabbing an AI co-pilot and going to work. Because short-term people who master AI are definitely going to be some of the most sought after in the workplace. And the people who know how to then take their dollars and buy those scarce assets will have mastered the single trick that rich people have abused to stay ahead of you for decades. But it doesn't have to be forever, because everyone can play this game. So get ready for what could be fire sales on the only assets you really need to collect. I hope this video helps, and if you did enjoy it, you know what to do. Make sure to watch this video popping up. It's even better than the one you just watched, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.